No recording equipment? No problem. This week we're going to take a look at creating a spell sound effect using only free library resources. So a few days ago, I was talking to a small group of game designers, and we were talking about how they approach sound design for their games. And the general consensus was that a lot of these smaller teams who are also working on a limited budget will actually go out onto the internet and they'll look for kind of free sounds. And one of the problems that they run into is that, they go out and they look for these sounds, but they're limited to what they're able to get. For example, if you have an animation that runs a certain length, you're kind of stuck trying to find sounds in that genre that fit that animation, and that can be very difficult. So for this video, what I wanted to do was I wanted to go out and I wanted to grab only sounds that I could source from free locations, and then see what I'm able to create using those sounds. One of the things that I do want to point out before we jump into this, though, is if you're going to go out and you're going to source sounds from different websites, one of the things that you want to be very, very careful about is copyright. Now, there's a lot of sites out there. Some have free sounds that you can use however you see fit. Sometimes the sounds that you use, the license require that you acknowledge where you got it from. There are sites out there where you can buy exclusive sounds or non-exclusive sounds, but definitely make sure that you familiarize yourself with that. So for this video, because it's going on YouTube, I'm pulling only from YouTube's sound library. Now the sound that I wanted to create for this project is I wanted to kind of have like a magical spell that kind of charges up and then releases. So I went to the YouTube sound library and I did some shopping. Now I knew that the sound that I wanted to create, like I said, is kind of a charge up and release type spell. So just like if you were making a meal, you know how you want the meal to end up, then you got to find the ingredients. So to get the base sound for this spell charge up, I wanted some long, kind of steadier sounds. That way we could build the base. And I've got a couple other sounds in here that we can sprinkle in just to kind of help enhance that sound effect. Alright, so we've got our raw tracks pulled in, and as you can see, one of the things that you will run into when you just pull in sound effects from different areas, there's going to be a lot of cleanup that needs done. And so just to kind of give you guys an idea of what we pulled in here, I've got an air tank, an electric mud mixer, an emergency road flare, some hair clippers, and this might be my favorite, a meat grinder. And we're going to use these for the base of the spell effect. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move these around a little bit, just to kind of put all of the ones that we're going to be using for the base at the top. It just makes organization a little bit easier. For some additive effects, I did get some branches moving around, a power tool, and some wind chimes that I think would be nice to kind of sprinkle in. So we're going to go ahead and clean these up and see what we got to work with. Alright, so we've got these kind of trimmed up, and I went ahead and hid the tracks that we're not going to be using for the base sound of the spell. And as you can see, I've got this mud mixer kind of separated. That's because I actually want to do this in two parts. I kind of want to do the charge up part first, and then I'll do the release. And then after I get the full base spell effect done, then I'll go back and I'll bring in the others just to kind of layer it all together. Alright, so I know if we listen to this right now, it's not going to sound like a spell effect at all. It's just going to sound like a bunch of noise. I think what we're going to have to do, though, is a lot of frequency automation. And so for that build up, I want to kind of sweep the frequencies from low to high. That way we kind of get that charge up effect. Alright, so to give you an example of how we're going to sweep these, this is the air tank leak. And I'm actually going to kill everything but the mid frequencies, and we're going to boost them. So as we play this, I'll sweep up the frequency so you can kind of hear what I mean when I say that frequency sweep, and to get that charge up effect. I want to automate them all together. That way, as we sweep the frequencies, everything kind of stays in tune with each other and we don't get a bunch of dissonance. So I need to figure out how I'm actually going to sweep these. I'm thinking I want the build up to be, I really don't want to go any longer than like a second and a half. So what we're going to do is we're going to apply our sweeping effect to our automation channel. And I'm going to find where that frequency starts. I'm going to go ahead and open these up, because we may need to change a little bit. Like I said, I do want to keep everything in essentially the same frequency for the same pitch. But now you can kind of start to hear where we're getting with that that charge up for the spell. Okay, so that's a nice kind of sweeping in. Obviously, we're still a long ways off from where we want to be, though. So let's just play around with some other effects and see what we can do. All right, so I threw a heavy reverb on all the channels. I actually use the exact same reverb. And now we kind of have a, what reminds me of a Final Fantasy type spell. But now you can definitely hear that we're starting to get into the realm of where we want to be. All right, so I went ahead and split these out so that we could only work with the charge up effect. And if you notice, I'm also slamming this frequency sweep back down. All right, so after doing some automation, I think I've got a pretty decent charge up effect. And after doing so, I was kind of listening to it, and since we don't actually have an animation to go off of, that kind of gives us a little bit more creative freedom. And so what I think I want to do is, I like how that pauses. So I think what I'm going to do is, for the discharge, I'm actually going to separate it by almost a second. And so you're going to hear the charge up, and then it's just going to be silence. And then once that discharge kicks in, that'll actually kind of help boost how that discharge feels. So I'm going to go ahead and print this down. That way we've got our charge up, and then we'll start working on the cast. All right, so for the fade out, essentially what I did was I took the charge up that we had, and I reversed it, which is kind of the easy way out, but it works. I also took some wind chimes that I had grabbed when I was picking some sounds, and I did something that you don't typically see, and I actually doubled up on the reverb here. And so that kind of really draws it out. I drew it out enough that I actually had to put in some volume automation. I imported the explosion sound that I did for my very first video, and I pulled it down in the mix, just kind of helped give some of that punch. And I threw a lot of it to MH Thump, which when I'm making sound effects, you guys are probably going to see me use MH Thump quite a bit. It's a really great plugin that I really enjoy using. So I let the wind chime kind of carry over the silence that I said I was going to have, and this is what we end up with. So I'm pretty happy with that sound, and hopefully you guys are too. Like I said, without having an actual animation to go off of, it's a little difficult to know exactly what we're doing, but it gives us a lot of creative freedom. So you can use these techniques and make these sounds however you want. I really just kind of wanted to give you guys an idea of how you could take a bunch of different sounds that you pull from libraries and really make it your own. All right, so that's going to do it for this week's video. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and hanging out. You will be able to download the sound that we created this week. There will be a link in the description below. But you'll also find a list of some places where you can go out and grab some library sounds. As always, if there's something you guys would like to see in my videos, please feel free to drop a comment down below, or you can get a hold of me on any one of these social media channels. Until next time.